Welcome back to GoldSeek TV. I'm Vanessa, Collette, and I'm pleased to be joined again by Brent Cook, the author of Exploration Insights. Welcome back, Brent.
Lovely to be here again.
Now let's touch on selling discipline right now. You know, for a generalist investor coming to the resource sector right now, the valuations are just incredible. Maybe at the peak that they've ever been at. I mean, I don't think that they've ever been this low to the gold price or to some of these commodities prices ever before. But are you still recommending that investors who've been in this, you know, all along, get rid of stocks that, you know, aren't doing so well in favor of buying some of these, you know, highly undervalued stories?
Most definitely. I mean, we've been talking about this for 4 years now, and each time it's always get rid of the stocks that aren't working, that don't have a chance, and it's still the same thing. In this junior sector, you've got to roll those things out if they're not working as quickly as possible and deploy them back into something that's got a chance of working. So I still think, you know, if you haven't done it by now, you better get doing it.
Right.
But in terms of the timing and what it's like here, the title of my talk today was, could it get any better or worse than this? And the answer is yes, because I think this is the time that you can come in and make incredible purchases on companies, but I'm not convinced that this is going to be the best time. So what I'm doing, someone just asked me today, you know, should I buy XYZ? I say it's a great company. I would buy it with the anticipation and hope that I can get it for half again later on.
Wow.
And if you come into the sector with that in mind, then if you can buy it for half, fantastic, because you're still buying something that's got value. And if you can't, if it goes up, well, great, you made some money. But that's the way I think you got to approach this sector.
And that's the true value investor's credo, really. You have to be willing to.
Yeah, provided nothing's changed, provided they still have the asset, they're still doing the same thing.
Same thesis.
Yeah, if you can get it for half price again, fantastic. So the key is, don't blow all your money right now.
Don't blow all that dry powder. Now, how do you time things? Because, you know, you're saying you think things could get worse, and yet, what if, you know, an investor misses out on buying now and they miss out on opportunity, those big gains they're buying on the way up? Yeah,
timing's tough, and it's not something I'm particularly think is my specialty. I just buy things when I think they're good value, undervalued, and watch them closely and react to events, expectations. If they meet my expectations or don't meet my expectations. So that's how I view it. Timing-wise, it could certainly get a lot worse, or this could be the bottom. I don't see anything out there that's going to really, I don't see a catalyst that's going to, you know, spark this sector into gear. I don't see that. So I think you're overcautious.
And that's what you're doing right now with your investments, is just holding or waiting a little bit longer?
Yeah, my feeling is it's too late to really sell some of the things that someone could have sold, but it's a good time to start adding some with the expectations that it will get better, and we know it will get better somewhere down the road. That will happen, but I don't know when.
Now let's talk again about mine supply and demand, because you mentioned that things are different now than any other time, and that a lot of companies are going to wake up without mill feed, without supply. So why are things different now than at any other time?
I think because there's a lot of reasons, but what I'm seeing now is it's not a supply and demand deficit in metal and that sort of thing. What the deficit is in new discoveries, new deposits.
Right.
So demand will very shortly exceed the supply of new deposits. The problem now is that now we're producing 90 million ounces of gold, 18 million tons of copper. That's tough to replace. And even if you do make a discovery, your timeline from discovery to development is 10 to 20 years. So that lag is going to be really fun to try and fill. So that's where the deficit is, and that's where I think the real sweet spot is going to be going out of this. I don't think it's going to be metal prices rising. I don't think it's going to be discovery per se. It's going to be the recognition by the majors that they need to replace what they've mined.
And do you see, an M&A sort of frenzy happening at that point, or is this, kind of that capitulation that's coming?
Yeah, no, I think we will see, with a slight bump in metal prices so that the majors see that maybe it's finally bottomed.
Right.
I think you're going to see desperation in all of them, in them running out there and trying to buy something because they need it. Right now, they're not exploring. We've got 3-4 years in a row, exploration's down, capital expenditure's down. What they're cutting to stay in business is their sustaining capital. If you're not sustaining your business, you're going out of business. And that's what they're cutting.
So all these companies that aren't spending money on discoveries, I mean, for a long time, a lot of money was just spent on proving up existing resources. So, there are companies out there that are exploring. Do they have better odds right now because there's less companies exploring?
We do. As investors, we've got better odds because
okay, how so?
So many of the fly-by-night guys are gone. And, it's been high-graded. I mean, you go to this conference here, and every company in there, with maybe an exception or two, I wouldn't be embarrassed to have in our portfolio.
Right.
So that's great.
Are there any quick gains to be made, or are you completely hunkering down for the long haul?
I don't know. I don't really try and play quick ups and downs. Other people are better at that than I just want to understand what I'm buying and what it's probably worth and go from there.
Now let's talk a little bit about global warming. What's your philosophy on whether or not global warming is occurring?
My philosophy on global warming. I'm a scientist. I actually have a minor in climatology and a major, my major is geology, but climatology, and it's my hobby, if you will. And in 2007, I went through all the literature, and I've continued to do so to see what's going on. So sure, it's an important subject, and all the science, 95% of science, tells us that it's happening. We know the reasons it's happening. It's anthropogenic. It's CO2 for the most part. It's a fact, and it's a fact.
So what would you say to detractors who might say that, for example, the sun in its lifespan continues to enlarge and become hotter and hotter? Would that not also have the same effects?
No, certainly. If your time frame is a billion years, I'd be concerned.
But not so much for...
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see that over the next 100 years.
So with global warming, you mentioned that, you're seeing deposits now, for example, in North BC that are being exposed now for the first time because of this warming.
Yeah, it's interesting. Over the past 20 years in BC, Alaska, all over the world, really, almost all over the world, the glaciers have receded like 20 kilometers up to. So we're getting fresh exposures of outcropping mineralization that nobody could have seen years ago. And there's companies doing that. Constantine is one who was seeing fresh outcropping mineralization that was under a glacier 20 years ago. So it's opened up a lot of ground.
Now, what's your take on technology in the mining sector in terms of being applied to exploration? Is there going to come a time when we'll know exactly where every single deposit is, where we'll be able to map, through to the Earth's core?
No.
No.
Short answer, no.
How come?
It's a complex system, very complex system. You're dealing with, let's take for instance what's happening in South America today. The Pacific Plate is subducting under the continent, it's melting, it's forming magma, lava. It comes to surface, makes volcanoes, it gets faulted up, the San Andreas style fault comes through, does that, offsets it, it gets eroded, another one builds up on top of it. It's just a continual process that, the first thing you learn in Geology 101, day one, is about time and uniformitarianism, which is basically, it takes, the Earth's been here billions of years, and it has gone through cycles and cycles and cycles. The whole continents have come and gone in a short time frame. So, no, it's too complicated.
Okay. Now, last time you were on the show, you talked about Iran as being a country that you would love to explore. Now that the sanctions have been lifted, are you planning a trip?
They haven't. We're still debating what's going to happen on the sanctions. I certainly hope the U.S. Politicians or intelligence know a deal when they see one. And it's interesting. I had a talk just the other day with a group, and we were talking, a fellow who had worked in Iran, and we were talking about how to get in there and start acquiring ground and making contacts there, because it will be one of the most richest unexplored new terrains out there if you can get in there.
Well, thank you so much for stopping by again today, Brent.
You're welcome.